Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're cracked up to be? Here at Terrible Book Club, we explore whether you really can judge a book by its cover, or its ridiculous synopsis. You ever passed a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
Hello, and welcome to episode 81 of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Paris, and this is Chris.
Hello, everyone.
This time we read Worst Ideas Ever, 42 Truly Terrible Decisions by Daniel B. Kline and Jason Tomaszewski. This was at the request of our patron Lynn. I have the book here with me. Look at that glorious, shitty book. Yeah, look at that.
Okay, so when we say look at that... we have to acknowledge that there will be some people listening to this episode who cannot look at that.
Well, too bad. They can go and find us on Twitch and watch it later. It's fine.
Okay, well, we should explain to the audio people that perhaps don't see that we started to stream our recordings on Twitch for the time being while we're in quarantine hell world.
Yeah.
There might be some Twitch chat acknowledgements happening here and references to look at this or check this out, which, maybe we'll upload the video to YouTube or who knows, right? So that's just going to be, there's going to be a slight visual component to this as well. But for you, just audio-only folks out there, we're still delivering our quality TBC product. In fact, I feel like since we're, broadcasting this, I should put on, radio voice, right? Welcome to TBC in the Quarantine Studios.
Please, God, please don't.
Coming at you from our bedrooms.
No.
It's Terrible Book Club episode 81 with Chris and Paris.
No, that was horrible. Please never do that again.
Don't tell me what to do.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, my pop filter is creating a shadow. All right. So, this was, as I mentioned, a Patron's Choice episode. So thank you to Lynn for this recommendation. Thank you for supporting the show. Lynn recommended this book because it was the worst book that she read in 2019, and apparently she did a lot of fucking reading in 2019, so this was the worst of it. If this is your first time listening to this show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is we read books that we assume will be bad, and we base this sometimes on their cover or title, their summary, or some combination of the three. So we do the opposite of what normal people do in a bookstore, or if they're browsing on Amazon or something. And once in a while, we end up liking a book, like our last episode, Bear. We ended up loving that book. But most of the time, this experiment results in a hilariously disappointing read, like today. For content warnings, nothing too crazy. We got our usual barnyard language. Couple of the bad, tasteless jokes we're going to talk about do reference, misogynistic stuff and maybe some sexual assault. So, be aware of that. But we're going to talk about why they suck. And not actually go into detail on those things. So, just a minor warning today. So, the back of the book reads as such. We all can make bad decisions, but some make history. Some bad decisions are infamous. Remember New Coke or the XFL? While others have managed to slip under the radar of public consciousness, like the in-car record player. But just because we've forgotten a bad idea doesn't make it any less horrible. We all cringed when Michael Jordan announced he was leaving basketball for baseball, but did you know that Whoopi Goldberg made a never-released $35 million buddy cop movie where her partner was an animatronic dinosaur named Theodore Rex? Part history, part comedy, Worst Ideas Ever takes a look back and explores some of the biggest flops of all time. They say hindsight is 20/20, but it's hard to believe nobody saw these coming. This book delves into the history of disaster, taking you through failed marketing campaigns, terrible pop icon projects, disastrous corporate decisions, and more, as the authors review every funny detail of what went wrong. Worst Ideas Ever shows what separates the merely bad ideas from the terrible ones.
So the word delve there
yeah,
is...
Yeah, and the mentions
I don't agree
to
with
details
implies some depth, perhaps, or like you've gone far under the surface. But the thing about this book is that at best, it's like you're not even scratching the surface. You're maybe like kind of putting your nose up to it, sniffing it, and then going like, I think I get it, and moving on with your day. So I don't think that there's much delving to be had here.
No, it was really weird because it was almost like someone took a BuzzFeed listicle and was like, yeah, we're going to make this a book. It's going to be great.
What if you...
No,
okay,
it's so
listen,
terrible.
Paris, what if you stapled like 10 BuzzFeed listicles together? Also, you didn't have as much like... maybe there's an equal amount of content to a listicle there. And then also you had to pay for it. Instead of just like clicking over to it when you're like trying to take 5 minutes off from your office job.
Right, and like
that.
Who needs a book of listicles or like a book of shittier than Wikipedia articles? Like these aren't also, these don't even rise to the level of Wikipedia article. Like it's that
you don't even get the funny gifs from like a BuzzFeed article. You know, like the person that puts those together takes the time to like just type in like someone reacting funny GIF into Google or something like that. So you're not even getting that part. There's photos in here. So like, I don't know, maybe a good 20 to 30 pages of this book is just like pictures instead of text, but it's not like you're missing out on much. It really feels like they're just trying to pad the page length here, which is disappointing considering that I guess when I saw this book, I was hoping that they would decide to go a little bit more in depth into why these bad ideas happened or something, and they even acknowledge that in like the prologue section. Actually, the best parts of this book are the prologue and the epilogue. For the prologue, it's because they're like, wouldn't it be great if you could be a fly on the wall at some of these meetings that spawned these bad ideas? And I was like, oh cool, maybe we'll get some interviews or like insight or something that will, you know, give us that insight into why these bad ideas happened or what, you know, what was the thought process behind it. But at best, it's like if you Googled it went to the Wikipedia page for these notoriously bad ideas, clipped out the top paragraph, added a couple of tasteless jokes in there or dad jokes, and then called it a day.
Yeah, it's really mystifying that you would put so much effort into this because, as Chris mentioned, the epilogue is probably the most interesting part about this book because in the epilogue, the authors actually kind of acknowledge that this whole thing was terrible, but they
that's my favorite part.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, maybe this is a terrible idea too. But then they sit there and they thank like 30 people and they're like, oh, thank you so much for helping us make this a reality. It's like, guys,
how did you need the help?
Guys, set the bar a little higher. Like publishing this like book of half-assed Wikipedia articles was really like the shining light in your fucking creative adult life. Jesus Christ, I was just so... Didn't
they also like quit their, like someone got laid off or quit a job or something to like produce this? I think
yes, they did.
How about Paris? How about you just read the epilogue here?
It's kind of long.
Like honestly, or at least like a segment of it, the part where it talks about like, oh, thanks so much for helping us in our darkest hour when we created this thing.
Yeah, it says that Dan Kline, one of the authors, decided to quit his job randomly when he was at a concert, actually in Boston at the Paradise, which is funny for us since we've been there. He just decides to quit his job. And this was also, I think, either during or right after the recession, so, I don't know, early 2000s or something. And then the other author was then laid off from his family's company. So they were both jobless. And somehow...
That's, like, really extra harsh, honestly.
I know, like, that made me feel kind of terrible, right? Because, you know, two dudes... well, one guy quit his job, so that's his own fucking fault. But the other guy, that's kind of rough being laid off from your own family's business.
I think it was the other guy was laid off from the other author's family. Like, Dan had a family business that the other author worked for and got laid off from.
Jason was laid off from Dan's family's business, yes.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to clarify.
So, somehow, both of them jobless, they decide, let's make this fucking awful sad excuse of a book. Like, I
guess you have the spare time for it now, as we all do all of a sudden, to have, do our creative efforts here. So, yeah.
But
to me,
clearly, honestly, this editor, Anne Treisman, you are the person that I have to find, because there were so many typos in this little book. I mean, all right, I'm just gonna open a few pages so you see that.
Well, it's not a little book. I mean, it's like 200 pages. I mean, the font isn't small or anything. But okay. It's a good 2 hours out of your life, right? Like, all right, 2 to 3 hours, maybe.
Like, not very small font. I mean, it's not a lot in this book. I finally got so tired of typing out what the typos were. I just started listing page numbers in the notes, and there are so many typos. It's crazy. I mean, how did the editor not have enough time or a critical eye to edit what is basically like the top paragraph of Wikipedia articles for 20 things? Like, I don't think
anyone was like really doing their like A game on this one here. It just doesn't seem like that anyone was putting maximum effort in here, or even halfway effort, I would say. It's just a time waster all around.
Yeah, so I totally get why Lynn said this was the worst book, she read in 2019. I mean, I honestly, it's a dubious book. I don't know that I would classify this as a book. Again, it is essentially a listicle made print, and I just don't know if listicles need to be given flesh in the world, It just doesn't seem right.
Wait, is this book made out of flesh? I had it. It seemed like it was made out of paper. Did you get a Necronomicon version or something?
Oh, man, I think, Chris, those dad jokes are somehow worse when I can see you.
You can see me smiling at my own joke now.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, like, on top of that, can we acknowledge that these people also have a podcast?
Yeah, I didn't know that until we got right to the end and they mentioned it, and I was like, oh, interesting.
They're in fairly close proximity to us, so I can't, completely discount the thing that Lynn might be trying to start a podcast fight of some kind here.
I hope that wasn't the intention.
Like survival of the bad arts, or they're not critiquing bad art because their podcast is like worst of the week or something, and we decided not to listen to it I don't know, for like quarantine. I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, we generally try to keep ourselves as unbiased as we can, so we try not to dig too deep into other things the author may have done, because we want to just keep the criticism on the work itself. I mean, there have been exceptions to that when the authors have kind of been notorious for how they behaved in light of their work, like Gloria Tesh and what was that other internet guy, Mr. Enter? I think we talked a little bit about both of them, just since who they were was so tied into the creation that we were critiquing. But I mean, in this case, I don't know. I mean, maybe their podcast is great. I mean, it's. I'm guessing that's how Lynn found. I mean, I don't know. I'm just taking a stab in the dark there. It might not be how Lynn found this, but maybe their podcast is great. I don't know. I mean, we're just talking about this one thing, and like I said, I think the authors themselves kind of acknowledge that it was maybe the 43rd truly terrible decision in the book.
The way they organize is like, here's 42 of the worst ideas, but it's really like 42 different sections on specific topics. And then those are further divided into like, themes.
Oh,
like
no, there's not 42 sections. There's 42 items, and they're divided into sections, but there's not 42.
I feel like some of the items have like a couple of things underneath them.
Yeah,
like there's some of the segments have like 2 bad ideas that they're classifying. So they're not even well organized, let's say.
Oh yeah, so I can just go through and read off there's only 42 of them. So they cover.
Before you do that, though, I just want to say that they are segmented into like sports and other sections like that.
One is just called stuff.
Yeah, that's the catch-all. But I had one big fucking problem with one of them.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Most of them are like, they just like a regular bold kind of print font, and they just have the words there. But on one segment, the one about the arts, there's like scare quotes or like just like quotation marks around the arts, as if to say like, these people aren't really doing, who likes the arts, right? It's all bullshit.
Yeah. So, for example, like, this is a regular one. I'm showing the food and drink title. But then when you get to arts, which
I think on the Twitch stream it's mirrored, so it was like cringe and doof that you just showed everyone.
Great. I'm glad they're getting a similar experience to what we experience when we read
my favorite diet
the
of cringe
arts
and doof.
Straw. But yeah, the quotation, like, get the fuck out of here with your quotation marks. I'm trying to denigrate my arts. Get out of here.
I guess I understand that they're trying to feel like, oh, this isn't really the arts here, but like, even though we're sort of an arts critique podcast, I have been thinking about this a lot. I don't necessarily want to be the kind of people that say you shouldn't try to make art even if you fail at it, even if it's not necessarily like the best art or something like that. We're trying to highlight, the way our podcast is framed is like we're judging books by their cover, and we're trying to see if our prejudging is correct or not. And on top of that, usually we find stuff that like even in the ideas phase should not have left the ground whatsoever. Like, it should not have begun to, like, even start the engine up. Usually.
Yeah. So, just so you know what the content is, some of the things they cover, New Coke, the Taco Bell Chihuahua, alcoholic energy drinks, edible underwear, deep frying a turkey, microwaved food, death on a plate, which was, the Krispy Kreme burger. We got the Segway, the Hindenburg, the Yugo, the Apple Newton. That one was actually kind of funny. The Atari Jaguar, Sega Dreamcast, and Coleco Atom. The in-car phonograph, Laserdiscs, the female urinal. Jar Jar Binks, celebrity albums, adding a cute kid, etc. They talk about Battlefield Earth, Cop Rock, Theodore Rex, The Godfather Part 3, Michael Jordan leaves basketball for baseball, the XFL, the Bowl Champion Series, Disco Demolition Night, the AOL and Time Warner merger, Esperanto, celebrity baby names. I mean, I read most of them, I skipped some, but so that's the kind of thing we're talking about, just kind of like pop cultural failures.
Yeah, things that honestly you've probably heard of a bunch of times before, and like had, like, you know, heard a bunch of Jay Leno jokes about them, which honestly is the kind of the quality of the jokes in here is like a Jay Leno monologue most of the time, I find.
Yeah.
And a lot of the jokes are sort of the tasteless variety. There's one moment where they make a strangling a hooker joke, which is just disgusting. Like, let's come on, guys.
Yeah, like, why would you ever make that joke? And I mean, it's not like this book came out in, I don't know, the 80s or the 90s when people weren't as aware, you know, of that they should be a little more sensitive about things. This was copyrighted in 2011 and 2015, so, like, not that long ago. You know, within the last 10 years, certainly. So that's concerning.
Yeah, it's not like the rest of the book is necessarily trying to be like very shock jockey about it or something like that. It's just that sprinkled throughout here are these weird tasteless jokes like that, or like gendered jokes a lot of the time. Like when the Yugo comes up, they're like, "What a small lady car for ladies."
No, they were talking
real men.
They were talking about the Le Car, apparently, which was.
Oh, sorry, I confused my bad car ideas.
Yes. Oh well, I have a good Yugo story, but we can wait on that. There's definitely this weird misogynistic undertone in the book, and it's strange because they do point out that the Taco Bell Chihuahua ads were insensitive and kind of racist in the 90s, but then a couple pages later they make that hooker strangling joke, and then a little bit later they refer to people who identify as male as like the rougher gender, and they also fetishize and sexualize Alyssa Milano and the Olsen twins as teenagers, which is just disgusting. Like, bleh.
Yeah, I remember when like the countdown clocks for like when the Olsen twins are turning 18 was a thing on the internet, and I just don't understand. I never understood that mentality.
Yeah.
It was always just icky as fuck, man.
Fucking gross.
So that's, I mean, in terms of, like, offensiveness, I guess that's the worst of it. And, like, I guess that's honestly, in comparison to a lot of the other stuff we've read here, it's not as bad as some of the other stuff. It's mostly the typos that are, like, the really terrible thing.
Oh, wait,
here.
There's also the supermodel joke, which I found pretty tasteless. When they're talking about The Godfather Part 3, they say, following 2 Best Picture winners made it nearly impossible for The Godfather Part 3 to meet expectations. It's sort of like if you just dated 2 supermodels, it would be hard to go back to dating that pretty girl at work. There's just something kind of gross about it, you know? It's
why does it always have to be like that? Like, why does it always have to be like that? We've got enough gross dudes out here. Could you just, like, tamp it down a little bit? So, I mean, yeah, like, there's not that much to talk about because the ideas presented, they are bad ideas. Like, I'm not going to say that any of the ideas presented weren't bad ideas. It's stuff, again, that we've all heard about for the most part through pop culture osmosis. Was there anything in here, Paris, that, like, surprised you or, like, you didn't know about?
Actually, yeah, so, guys, it's, alright, it's 2020. I'm reading this book. I get to the Jar Jar Binks chapter, and I just found out that Jar Jar Binks became a fucking elected representative in Space Senate.
Why didn't you vote, Paris? You didn't vote? You didn't cast your ballot in that election?
What in the ever-living fuck? Why would anyone allow that to happen
Wait
in
a
the
minute,
Star
did you
Wars
not
universe?
see, like, episode 2 and 3?
No, I didn't see them. I only saw one,
okay.
and then the rest of them.
Well, yeah, that was a thing in episode, I think,
Christ.
3 is where it's, like, confirmed. There's that whole thing, like, this is how democracy dies, not with a bang or whatever.
But with
thunderous applause. It was like Jar Jar voted in Palpatine or some shit, like, as the Emperor. I'm pretty sure. I forget exactly.
Wait,
if that's
what?
how it went
Okay,
down,
I don't know about that. Let's not take our saying on that.
Yeah, I'm not going to get, like, a Star Wars lore email, so I could totally. But anyway,
Yeah.
Jar Jar was elected to the Galactic Senate as, like, a Gungan representative.
Blew my
and
fucking
I'm
mind.
pretty sure that. Yeah, I think it was, like, only Amidala and, like, maybe him. I forget if he voted for Palpatine or not, but he was there was definitely a scene with him in, like, Senate robes that I don't think anyone liked. So.
Blew my mind. Yeah, and there are a couple of other things just kind of made me remember some funny stuff. I don't know, like the Yugo chapter. I was psyched about the Yugo chapter because I had a fucking Yugo as a kid. So the funny thing about the Yugo chapter was that as I was reading it, I was like, oh yeah, Yugo, like, we had one of those. And if you're unfamiliar, Yugos were cars from the former Yugoslavia, which is, of course, no longer a nation. It's been divided up differently. And they were just, like, really shitty, cheap cars that constantly broke. And it was said in here that, let me see if I can find it.
I'm getting confirmation from our patron Greg that Jar Jar did indeed elect Palpatine as Emperor.
Oh, God.
So I pay attention to politics, Paris.
I'm glad one of us knows what's going on in the Star Wars universe. I clearly fucking don't. So, apparently, Yugos were, all the Yugos in the US were recalled in 1990, and it ended its operations in the US in 92. Mind you, my dad bought a Yugo well after 1992 that we had. And I had...
tiny or whatever?
No, they're smallish, but they're, I don't know, like a small sedan. They're not like original Mini Coopers or anything like that. But I just think it's hilarious that just another stupid thing from my childhood where I realize how, like, fucking shitty and poor everything was. Like, my dad bought a recalled vehicle from Yugoslavia after it had already been recalled.
You gotta get around, right? So
I don't even know if he ever actually got it working. Like, no, I remember it work. I don't know.
Right, he had a car that didn't. He bought a Yugo that didn't even work.
Yes, yes.
Was this just, like, sitting in your front yard as, like, a project that he was supposed to get to, like, some classic fucking trailer park stuff?
Oh,
like,
yeah, absolutely. And he did work on it. But I don't remember if he was ever successful in really getting it to work well. But yeah, that was ridiculous. Like, good job, Dad. Good job buying that car after it was fucking recalled. Oh, wow. Yeah, so that was good. there were also just some, like, weird things they mentioned. They were talking about how the authors themselves were saying how, yeah, man, a microwave is only good for, or one of a microwave's only uses is to microwave water for tea. And I was like, dude, if you microwave water for tea, that's gonna produce some real subpar shit.
This is just indicative of both of these authors' sort of half-assed nature of going about everything. You can't even boil water. You're not doing research for your book well at all. You can't even boil water for tea. It's like the least amount of effort to do anything. There's like electric water heaters of all kinds. What? Are you just sticking the mug in the microwave, taking it out, and then putting the tea bag in? Or are you putting tea bag in cold water, microwaving that? I have a feeling that's what they do, considering how their approach to everything else here.
Yeah, very strange. Yeah, I mean, just because, like, if you microwave water for tea, it doesn't hold the temperature for long enough, and it tastes like fucking shit. I just want to yell at them and be like,
are there any acceptable microwavable beverages besides maybe hot chocolate? Are there any beverages worth drinking that you would microwave that aren't hot chocolate?
Yeah, hot chocolate's the only one I can really think of, and even then, I much prefer
I guess if you're extending this to like broth or like soup.
hot. Dan says hot cider. Yeah, maybe. I still would like prefer hot chocolate or cider to have some element of boiling or some kind of electric thing. But yeah,
just like anything else, using your actual stovetop or oven is always going to be better than anything in the microwave. And to be fair, I'm not like a non-microwave user. I use that thing a lot, like way too much probably, but at the same time, microwaving tea just seems like heresy to me.
Yeah, I agree.
It's again indicative of the half-assed nature of a lot of things these authors seem to be doing. So are there any other particular things in here that we'd like to sort of call attention to? There is one bit here in your notes that we do have sort of a story from when we lived together.
Oh yeah, actually, can I just say
like
that
side story.
I just counted all the typos and there were 25. 25 typos.
Like what? In like 240 pages or something like that?
Okay, saying 240 pages is bullshit. This is not a 240-page book. This is like there's a bunch of pictures and giant spaces and large...
So minimally we're talking like a 15% error rate per page or something like that.
And it's just inexcusable. I mean, we've read so many books, both good and bad, and even the bad ones don't usually have typo rates quite this high, so...
A couple of them have, but like that they're like real standout.
But like this, this at least looks professionally put together. You know, it looks like someone at least put effort into the layout and the publishing.
Yeah, I guess like the graphic designer was the person that did the most work on this by far.
Yeah, I'd say that. But that editor,
so whoever you are, good job, graphic design person.
Yeah, I don't know that you're actually credited anywhere.
Great.
I guess we can thank Skyhorse Publishing? Thanks?
Sure.
I guess.
Thanks. You mean like Pegasus, right? That's just a Pegasus. Was Pegasus taken by another company and they were like, shit,
Skyhorse,
I guess.
Yeah.
That was a really bad idea, I guess, guys. Oh shit, don't put us in the book. Fuck.
But yeah, the editor, I really... Oh, man, this editor, lady, you gotta redo that. It's not great.
Oh yeah, so any other particular things we'd like to bring out as examples of things here? I think we've covered a lot of the ground.
Like, I will say, though, to be fair, some of their phrases did have me chuckling. Like, the section on the Apple Newton was really funny, because I think that I was too young to remember that existing.
Yeah, that was like the one thing in the book that I didn't know about outright.
Yeah,
I think I remember seeing it like on an electronic store shelf at some point, but I don't remember that as like a thing that I've heard about through,
I just really liked
pop culture jokes.
The title, the Apple Newton. What if a Rolodex mixed with a calendar costs $699?
Yeah, fair, good one.
You know, and they've got some good points about it. It was just like a really, really shitty early I don't even know
PDA kind of thing.
PDA, yeah, but it was really terrible. So I don't know, that was kind of interesting. And they referenced like the Simpsons made a joke about it, and I was like, oh my god, I remember that Simpsons joke. I get it now, because I didn't understand what they were making fun of at the time. But I mean, everything else heard of. I mean, obviously, I don't really give a shit about all the sports stuff. That section, but that's a me problem. That's not a them problem. I'm just not into sports.
I don't know.
So,
I don't understand why they focused a lot on the whole Michael Jordan baseball thing. I feel like that got referenced in like other sections of the book too, as like, yeah, Michael Jordan's really bad sports decision there. I was like, okay, guys, I get it. Sure. Why is that the thing that we're sticking on quite a bit here?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're just both really into sports because it seemed like the sports sections were the longest sections. That was like the longest parts, so I think they were just into that.
There was also a segment here where you had a note, Paris, about like they made a joke about the length of women's genitalia hair, like of pubic hair, in like the 70s and 80s or something like that. I forget the context of it.
It's probably because we were talking. They were talking about the all like the she pee, all the devices that they sell to women to help them pee standing up, and how those are kind of terrible. And I agree. I mean, just find somewhere to squat, man. Like it's not. The cardboard tube does nothing. But they were talking about...
Are you just advocating that women pee in public right here? Like,
well, no, I'm saying, okay, as somebody who has attended many a music festival, you sometimes just have to find somewhere no one's gonna see you or have someone stand lookout. I mean, also when you're hiking and stuff, like
pee
you just
confessions
have to...
with Paris.
Well, I mean, but when you're hiking, you just have to squat off the trail.
Okay, hiking is one thing, but like a music festival, Paris, where are you going behind the tents and like...
Well, I mean, Chris, so I don't think you've ever been to like a large-scale music festival, but...
I've been to Warped Tour. Excuse me, Paris.
I'm ashamed to be on this podcast with you.
I went when I was 15 one time.
Okay, I can forgive you. You're forgiven. But I mean, sometimes things just get out of hand really quickly with the bathroom situation, and you just have to pee. So you just find somewhere that's obscured and you pee. I mean, it's these are.
Hope there's a statute of limitations on this kind of thing because you're about to get put on a list there.
I'm not gonna get put on a list. Jesus. Anyway, in the section about how these weird cardboard tube things for women to pee through is a terrible idea, they were saying how they were really impractical. I don't know. I guess they were talking about why they would be impractical, like if people were trying to sell them a lot, I guess, in the 70s and 80s, and they were like, well, women had so much more genital hair then, like, how on earth would that work? And I was like, I don't know, did they? But Chris was like, hey, they definitely did. Remember that time at the old apartment where we found that porn? And then so, years ago, when Chris and I lived together with some other roommates in the house that he currently lives in now, actually, there was some kind of leak in the first floor bathroom sink, and it inevitably just needed to be replaced. Like, the whole cabinet had to come out and get replaced. So when they moved the entire cabinet out, there were a bunch of old porno mags from, like, the 80s and 90s under there. And boy, were those hilarious. There were, like, English ones and Spanish. I don't remember if there was another language under there, but it was hysterical.
Yeah, who's, like, stashing the porn under the bathrooms? I guess, I don't know if that's where you go to do the business, right? You're just like, I just need them right there. Also, but it seemed like they weren't easy access, if I remember right. Like, you would have had to, like, move the fixture to get to them, right?
Yeah, because they were underneath, like, a panel that had been sealed.
Can you imagine someone walking into the bathroom and just be like, no one come in here, and then all of a sudden you just hear, like, a dragging sound across the floor?
No, you hear, like, power drills.
No one not come in here. I'm busy. And then, like, 10 minutes later, just...
Yeah.
All right, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it was a situation where they were just like, oh, fuck, I need to get rid of these. No one can ever find them. And they were just like, I'll seal them away here. No one will ever find them in the bathroom. No one can ever know. But I just...
Was it like the person that installed the original fixture in the first place?
Oh, like... Maybe it was the construction worker. Oh, God.
Like bringing their porn from home or something to like, I will forever seal it in for someone to find later on.
Yeah, what a fucking time capsule we found. They were all like...
I guess, like, there was a thing about, like, forest porn that kids would find sometimes in the 80s or whatever, where it's like you're hiking through the woods with your friends and there's just like stashes of some things like that.
Yeah.
But who would do that in their own house under a fixture that is very difficult to move and get to?
Yeah, I don't know. I do remember though that there were some very strange word choices. I remember in particular, I remember we were just all fucking cracking up for like hours looking at these things because it was almost like, because they were some in English and some in Spanish, but they were almost like even the English ones were like poorly translated, so the word choices were just bad. And I remember there was a reference to something being foamy and it was supposed to be sexy, but it just really sounded diseased, and it was just...
I need a nice foamy
it's not
interaction.
It's not a sexy word.
I have a rabies fetish is the thing, so the foamier the better.
Ooh, Greg says worked at a library and homeless dudes stored porn mags in the ceiling of the bathroom. All right, that's solid though. You can reach those.
Yeah, that's like a drop ceiling, right? Like it's much easier to just like push the tile aside and like grab your stash than to move the cabinet fixture in the bathroom.
Yeah. I don't know.
Of your own house that I'm assuming you're living in or something.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, so there were like a handful of phrases that made me chuckle, but overall, this book is a waste of time. And in terms of whether or not we could fix it, I think it could be fixed if they actually did in-depth research and interviews and then analyzed exactly how and why these ideas were so bad. Rather than just being like, oh man, remember when that happened? That was dumb. Like, yeah, we all know it's dumb, but like, we want substance, details.
That's the one thing, and like, I sort of like the sort of thing that I'm going to get on my podium here and like rant about is that for the fact that I think even in the epilogue they say like this took so much research for us to do. And I'm like, it could not have. This is like first page Google results, guys. And this, like, I'm about to spin off into an almost completely different topic.
Well, can I tell you exactly my like one sentence as to what this book is, or
sure.
Maybe a couple sentences. It's like when you have a school project you forgot about and you remembered the night before. That's what this is. That's exactly what this feels like. A last-minute paper that you're up writing.
Copy-paste.
Oh, fuck. Oh, God, yep. Absolutely. That is 100% what this feels like. So that is why I feel like it should not exist. But, sorry, Chris, continue. I think you're going to talk about the degeneration of experts.
Sort of what I was getting at was that to make something like this interesting to read, you would have had to like maybe called up the people involved or tried to get at least a contact with someone that could have been in the room or something like that. And maybe that might be hard to do if you're framing it as like, hey, I want to find out why you had this dumbass idea, moron, or something. Like, you don't have to go about it like that, but like, I'm just frame it as like, I'm writing a book for this podcast. I'm like interested in hearing the thought process behind a lot of this. Out of all of the ideas, like the 42 plus things presented here, it must have been the case that one of the people involved in these ideas would have been willing to chat with someone about the thought process or the meetings or whatever was involved into getting these ideas off the ground or something. And if you can't even go that far or even try to do that, especially when you're unemployed and you have a lot of time on your hands, what's the point of this book if I can just you might as well have just written the whole list out and let me Google it and find the Wikipedia article. And I bet if we chose a topic here and went to the Wikipedia page about it, we would get more info than is presented in this book about it. And that sort of brings me to my research topic here, which is like I said, in the epilogue, they mention like, oh, we did a lot of work and research on these topics here. And I gotta say, like, no, you didn't. And this is sort of a pet peeve of mine when people, especially like in internet arguments, they'll be like, go look it up, do your research. And it's always an extremely surface level understanding or something. Or they're denigrating people that have literally spent years and done actual research, or gotten a degree or gotten a certificate or certification or expertise in the field by spending more than just 1 week tops Googling the subject and looking at the first page of results there and, actually cross-referencing things. That is what research is. Don't ever tell me that you did your research unless you've actually taken more than, a few hours of time looking something up. It should have been months of your life to really, truly investigate a topic in depth at all. If you really want to say you did your due diligence, it takes much more time than a lot of people think when they're doing their research. Like, all right, that's me off of my soapbox here.
Obviously I agree with you. And the other weird thing about this is that there's no references in it.
Yeah, there's not like a bibliography. I mean, you don't really need one, right? Like, what's like the source you're going besides like this happens?
Well, no, but
who are you sourcing?
But I guess that's like my point, right? It's like there was nothing really researched, and I mean, just as an example, I looked up the Wikipedia article for New Coke, and it's much longer and much more in depth with a bunch of references with further suggested reading. So yeah, I don't see why this book needed to be made, and maybe it's because we don't listen to their podcast. I mean, I could understand if
was it supposed to be a supplement?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it was a supplement to their show, like maybe they talked about all these things. I don't know. Maybe these were like their most popular topics or something. Like, I could understand if they did that as a supplement to the show. It would make a lot more sense that way. It wouldn't be good, but it would at least make sense as to why they created it. But as it stands, I mean, they don't talk about it that way. So I'm only left to assume that this was just some random thing that they did
to kill the time between jobs or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's the laziness of it all that really gets to me, and the fact that they acknowledge that this was a bad idea at the end of it. So, like, why? I guess it's sunk cost, right? Like, oh, well, we took the time to piece it together. Or if you had the realization that it wasn't such a good idea, figure out how to fix it and not make it a bad idea.
Yeah, I think that they basically say at the end, like, hey, at least we persevered, we finished it, and we learned that our friends and family would support us through anything. And I mean, I guess there's some value in that, but I just feel like there's got to be something better. Like I said, set your bar higher, my friends. Like,
yeah, once again, I want to say, like, I don't necessarily just want to shit on someone for trying something like this, especially when, you had a lot of time on your hands from, like, recent setbacks or something like that. But if at the end of it, you're like, oh, I could have done a better job, and you still haven't published it, go and do the better job. Especially, like I said, if you actually acknowledge that in the epilogue section of the book and it hasn't been put out. I'm assuming they didn't like have a first printing with no epilogue and then they came back later and said, actually, like, looking at this now, it's kind of dumb. So you would have had, unless there was like some kind of deadline that they were trying to get to.
I don't know. I mean, and in some ways I do appreciate the fact that they kind of acknowledge, like, yeah, maybe this is also a bad idea. Because then, they're showing some humility and some self-awareness, but I don't know. It was bad. It was bad. I do not recommend anyone read it. If you're interested...
It's a waste of your time. It's honestly just a waste of 2 to 3 hours.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, if you're interested in any of those topics, just look them up and read the Wikipedia article and you will get more information with references.
Yeah. Maybe their podcast is better?
Maybe. I mean, I guess we'll find out. Like I said, we try to avoid...
When we start our podcast fight and we have to brawl them in the streets.
I don't really want to do that. This obviously isn't anything personal. This was a patron's choice, so we have to read anything that our patrons at a certain tier or higher ask us to read. At least we do our best to. So, this was something... Just
being honest, I didn't like my time with this book.
No, I didn't either. I didn't learn anything except about the Apple Newton, and that was not knowledge that I necessarily needed. So, yeah, can't say I recommend this one. Nope. So,
all right,
that's that, I guess.
Sure, yeah, like, well, a lot of these, like, smaller books, we can't really, like, stretch out the time that much more beyond what we have to say here, so We can do a little bit of good media talk, maybe, to like extend the last little bit of this episode if you're into that.
Do you have any good media to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Video games.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's talk about good media.
Doom Eternal is death metal the video game, and I'm really into it.
Oh yeah, I haven't played it, but that's cool.
I am not a first-person shooter guy by any stretch of the imagination. The most I'll get into of that genre is like a Fallout game, which is a little bit more RPG than like a shooter most of the time. Or, you know, maybe like an Outer Worlds or something like that, which is basically just Fallout but different. So I haven't played anything that's like really twitchy and fast-paced like this in a while, and it showed when I started the game up because I had to kick it down to easy mode, honestly, just so my blind ass could keep up with what was going on. I might try to replay it on normal mode after, because now I've kind of gotten more of the hang of things and I can maybe do better this time around, but just, I really like the loop of the gameplay and the fact that it forces you to switch weapons very frequently. Like, you are very frequently running out of ammo unless you're sort of doing specific actions that replenish your stores every once in a while, and you got to be mindful of like all of your little different things to like replenish your health or get more armor or something like that. Stuff like in a shooting game that most other shooting games I play, it's just point, shoot, and try to get through the level, you know, as best as you can, and I'm not paying much attention. I pick one gun and I settle with that. But this one really forced me to be like very dynamic and fast moving. Like, I have never played a game that forced me to be like literally constantly moving, and I actually felt like my aim got a little bit better in ways like that. Like I said, I have really bad vision, so sometimes I would end up in a situation where like the thing that I was supposed to do was like way far off in the distance, and I couldn't see it until I went to like a guide and like watch someone else do it or something like that.
You literally have, you have a pretty serious vision issue,
yeah,
so like that's
not
normal,
like a slight against the game. I'm actually just saying like the fact that this game has been holding my interest so much is really cool. Like, it's very over the top cartoony with its violence too, which I kind of appreciate when it's like Evil Dead levels of gore, I guess, because it's easier to swallow than something that's trying to be like super realistic or torture porny or something like that.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack is bomb. It's so good. Mick Gordon did it again. He wrote, like, better deathcore music than most deathcore bands out there have been doing. And it's not even really truly deathcore all the time, I guess. It's just, like, hey, every time the riffs kick in, it makes you want to shoot harder, and it's very effective at it.
Yeah, man, that's like when I'm at the gym. Being at the gym. R.I.P. Rip.
Remember that?
Rip being at the gym. It's like
I'm losing my gains, my muscles. I can see them shrinking.
I'm
sorry, fellas. I'm doing my best.
I actually think I found something to climb. I think I can climb my roof overhang over my back porch, and I'm so psyched. I'm going to try it tomorrow.
You're going to fall off your fucking roof and die now because you're climbing your roof overhang.
No. It's very safe. The roof overhang is over the porch. It's not outstretched, so I'm not going to die.
You're going to, like, swing bad one day, and you're going to, like, call me up and be like, Chris, I'm paralyzed now, so...
No.
I like how that your quarantine response is to like literally start climbing the walls.
Well, because I miss climbing. But yeah,
I miss my weightlifting too. I've got like very small like weights and like dumbbells I probably get to use sometime soon, because I've been focusing on like flexibility and cardio stuff because I have a stationary bike and I'm extremely inflexible. So
speaking of, I started doing yoga. I never thought I would be into like that fucking frou-frou white lady yoga shit, but it's great.
It's great. Yeah, I've also just kind of done basic stuff, and it's actually makes you feel great. So
yeah, on my Sunday routine has been to do this like 45-minute long yoga stretch thing, and it's hard, but it's really good. So recommend y'all do some yoga.
The stretches I've been doing make me hurt a lot. Not like a lot, but like I can really feel how tight I've gotten over time, and I can feel myself loosening up slowly as well. And it's I recommend it. Speaking of, I guess that's like good exercise review. That's good media in a way. Like, go to a YouTube channel with some white lady doing some yoga, and you can, try that out. I have one more good media thing.
Sure.
Technically, even though I haven't really properly dug into this stuff yet. But I took a gander at it because, I got the 5th edition starter kit for D&D because I've been running 4th edition with you guys in my group lately. And, after about a year and a half to 2 years of doing it, I've finally acknowledged, like, yeah, 4th edition's just such a pain in the dick. We're going to switch to 5th edition eventually after I hit a certain story beat. And I just got to say, even just, like, the art on the covers of these things is really rad. I've always loved fantasy art, especially, like, Dungeons & Dragons source book art. I even got, like, a shiny edition here. You can see in the camera if you're watching this on Twitch here. It's really cool. I'm into, like, the layout and presentation. This edition seems much simpler and easier to handle than 4th edition.
Oh, so, dude, I'm so glad that you took my bitching to heart.
It wasn't just you. Andy has been bitching as well from, like, day one. That's like, yo, 5th edition, bro. So.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've been playing 5e in my main campaign, which has unfortunately been on hold for quite a while, although I'm
your main campaign now, Paris.
No!
It's me.
Yeah, no. You're my secondary campaign, and my tertiary campaign is actually with...
I'm sorry that I'm just the side chick. No, I'm just teasing.
No, well, my main campaign is a playtest group where our DM is actually, like, publishing a book, like, not with Wizards of the Coast on his own, but he does all the art, and we've helped him to, like, craft this whole story and help him work out kinks and stuff, so that's my main campaign, and that's on hold right now just because everyone's lives got crazy. And so my secondary campaign is the one that Chris runs, where we also do, like, Chris World stuff. You know, it's not a Wizards of the Coast D&D official thing. My tertiary campaign, though, is actually an official D&D thing, which I haven't done in forever. My friend Dan is running it, and it's, like, me... 2 of my bandmates, and some other, like, people from the neighborhood, and it's been fun. Like, I guess the regular D&D stuff is kind of simple, but, you know, it's a good way to pass some time and help people get through this fucking weird hellscape that we all live in now. Our group schedule used to meet, like, once a month sometimes. Now it's, like, every couple of weeks we're kind of on that schedule now, so I'm, like, heart rushing to write, like, the complete set of the next arc. I always had, like, the general outline, but I leave the encounter design until, like, it's actually coming up in case, you know, the story beats end up being different, because my group is very gets not off track, but they like to just throw me curveballs all the time, so I can't set anything too hard in stone. Yeah, so it's been fun. We're kind of a pain in the ass, especially when Andy and I put our minds together.
I love it. Honestly, that's the fun part of D&D for me, is, like, me getting the basic idea and then my party members going, like, here's a completely left field idea that you had not considered. Now deal with it, motherfucker.
Yeah.
So, I've been having a lot of fun with that, and the 5th edition stuff looks really cool and much simpler to understand. So, after a couple more arcs, we'll, like, really dig into that. And I've, like, watched people play 5e before, so it seems like this has been a long time coming. Honestly, the only reason I stuck with 4th is because I just had the most books for that a year and a half ago when I started my campaign with the group. So I was just like, oh, let's just roll with this because this is what I got on hand. But now I'm like, I pretty much have everyone on board for the conversion and a couple of things. And just the quality of the source books, too, is just a lot better, I have to say. The art is cooler. Everything's laid out nicer. So that's my good media is... Death Metal, Doom Eternal, the video game, and 5e looks rad and awesome, and I'm excited for all of our future D&D stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so this is just my PSA that, like, if you're one of those people out there that thinks you're maybe too good for D&D, you're not. I used to be that person. I used to think that I was not nerdy enough. I was like, oh, I'm not a fucking mouth breather basement dweller, but I am, turns out. So, you know, in this time where we all need things to keep ourselves entertained and we need to make connections with people and find ways to kind of work together, D&D is a great resource for that. In all seriousness, you know, it's not only something that's entertaining and time-consuming, but you do really get good social interaction with other people, and you do get to, like, problem solve together and, you know, go through these stories that are typically really fun. So... try it out.
Also, it's hilarious most of the time. It's really fun. Like, just, it's fucking funny most of the time, which is what we could all use right now, is some fucking giggles, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's really easy to do at a distance, you know. I'm guessing, you know, you probably know somebody who can run a game, and if you don't, you could always join some random game. Although I wouldn't recommend that because it's a little hard if you're playing with random people. It definitely works a lot better if you're playing with people you already know, but, you know, if you're in dire straits, then you can always join a random game online. We use Roll20. It's a free application, in-browser application, to run our games, and you get video, you know, voice, and you get, like, all the game stuff. So definitely a good thing to check out if you're looking for stuff to do. Good media. Otherwise, I'm more than halfway done with book 4 of the Malazan series. I read quite a bit while I was on my trip, my ill-fated trip that we talked about on the last live stream we did. That was kind of shitty, but we talked about that. So I won't get too into it. But for those of you that weren't there, I was in Greece when this pandemic stuff kind of started getting real crazy, and my vacation fell apart in a series of hilarious hijinks. You know, it was a very Paris experience. It was a very like absurd, how is this my real life? Am I in a sitcom kind of a thing? If anybody who wasn't at the last live stream wants to hear more about it, you can ask me some questions in the chat when we're officially done with the episode, which is soon. But yeah, otherwise for good media, so like I'm still working my way through that book. Also still reading Extremity Retained by Jason Netherton. Sorry. It's just taken a really long time to get through it. It's like this series of interviews with people in the early death metal scene, and it's just like, it's good and I enjoy them, but it's kind of hard to get through because they're just they're like grouped geographically and also temporally, but not in a way that, I don't know, not in a way that's like really consistent. It'll be like Florida 1984 and you'll talk to like 4 people from bands, and then it'll be like Greece in 92. I don't know. It's just like kind of hard to remember what you've read. So I'm very slowly making my way through that, unfortunately, because I have a ton of books I need to get through. In terms of music, I've become totally obsessed with Hollis's new album, Conundrum. If you haven't heard that, it's like a 70s rock throwback, but I don't really want to say that because it's a lot more than that. It's also got like some cool spacey electronic and synthwave elements.
Can I just pipe up and say, please watch the music videos for Hollis, because if you
Tears
ever
of a
want
Traitor.
to see, it's just like basically a Tim and Eric sketch, like played. It's not even played that seriously. I think like they know how like ridiculous it all is, but it's like, what if a Tim and Eric band was like a legitimate real thing that also kind of sounded good though?
Dude, I am in love with Tommy's voice. Like I don't know, he's got this really distinctive voice. It's kind of weird, so I think some people might not be into it, but they also recently released a documentary on YouTube about the creation of the album, so definitely check that out if you can. I mean, I think Hollis is one of those bands that can appeal to like weird diehard metalheads like me, and also like casual regular people that listen to classic rock, just because it has so many elements that make it accessible, despite the vocals being a little strange. But I'm really in love with it. I've been like learning some of the songs. That's been great. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else.
While we're talking about music,
yeah.
I hopped back on the Coheed and Cambria train. I listened to their 2018 album, which was like Vaxis, The Unearthly Creatures. And I fell off the Coheed and Cambria train around Good Apollo 2, No World for Tomorrow, which was like, it only had like 2 good songs on it. And then like they wrote a book that I think we should read for Terrible Book Club.
Oh, really?
Because I was always curious about how that book would be, because it's a sci-fi story. I don't know if you know this about Coheed and Cambria, but they're basically just like one big like sci-fi space opera story told through like multiple albums.
I didn't realize that it was all a concept. That's kind of cool.
Well, they closed off that story, and now they're like doing other stuff that's still like sci-fi space opera stuff. I'm unsure if it's in the same universe or like is part. It's probably like, you know, in the future or the past or something like that of the universe that the guy came up with. So I've always wanted to read that book, but the 2018 album is fantastic. It's 15 tunes long, and pretty much all of them are bangers, especially the opener, The Dark Sentencer. I've been just like repeating that one in my head quite a lot, and it's been really, really, really fun. So I recommend listening to that one if you've ever been a fan of Coheed and Cambria, or you just like your sort of half prog rock, half prog metal kind of flavored stuff. It's really good.
Cool. I don't think that I have any other like music stuff really.
There's a recommendation in the chat from Adam for if you would like to read a comic book around role-playing games. He said he read one called Die, D-I-E, that he really liked. So, I don't know, maybe we should check that one out, too. But
yeah,
another good media recommendation for you from the Twitch chat. Well, I mean, if we don't have much more to say about that, should we wrap up the episode, Paris?
Yeah, we can wrap up the episode and then all right, do some Q&A. I
can do our patron role here.
Oh!
Thanks to our Patreon supporters. Dari, Greg, Will, Veronica, D, Jared, Lynn, Senior, Yakub, Bobby, Black Cat, Ayame, Jensina, Mayo Cat, Elliot, Kieran, and our newest patron, Martin. Welcome to the crew. Unfortunately, Torben, aka Ducking, had to leave us to tend to his kingdom of ducks. There's, he's as a world leader, he's probably in like some dire times right now, and he has to make sure that his duck kingdom is being led effectively. Who knows how the whole pandemic is affecting those poor ducks. So we wish you well, Torben. That's all our patrons. If you want to help support the show, you can subscribe on YouTube. I guess on Twitch now, maybe, if we're going to be doing this.
Yeah, I guess,
with some regularity.
Come on in. Get twitchy with us, I guess.
You can become a patron at terriblebookclub.com patreon.com/terriblebookclub. Terriblebookclub.com is just our website that you can go to sort of like have all of our content centralized for you. You can share the show or tell someone about it from a distance, perhaps, This
is... You know how I always tell people to, like, shout about it from their windows? This is the time. Get on your porch. Just shout. Listen to Terrible Book Club. Just get out there and just yell. Open your windows. Avail yourself to the world and yell into the ether. Since we literally cannot be in the same room as other people right now.
And, of course, rate or review us on any platform that you feel is relevant to rate or review us. iTunes, I don't know where other places you can put reviews. Goodreads, maybe?
Yeah, Goodreads. I'm trying to think. Podbean. I don't know. Any other fucking podcasting platforms or whatever, yeah.
Also, just shouting out your window. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I laughed a couple times.
Do it. All right, well, I guess that's the end of the episode, so we are going to sign off.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, for those audio only, we're going to stay on Twitch to answer some questions if any of you have any, maybe just to talk a little bit, but this is the end of episode 81, so thank you to Lynn for recommending this book. We really, really super appreciate your patronage. We're sorry that you could not be with us right now, but we're going to record this, so hopefully you can watch it at your leisure when you're not working.
Okay, then. Well, bye, Paris.
Bye, guys.